I've not got the opportunity to talk so much about what I loved about the movie. What I did love was the fact that Ridley Scott is, again, as I said, one of the last people who can make something this big. I think that there are a lot of people here who are film fans who are criticizing him. By all means, every right you have to criticize him. But I think if you're a filmmaker, if you work in films and you don't have a certain level of appreciation for the craft and the hard work and the genuine management that it takes to make an undertaking of this size, I have one simple sentence for you. I'd like to see you fucking try. Most people would absolutely die from day one. They would either quit filmmaking or quit life if they were forced with a challenge of a movie of this size, to manage something like this, to orchestrate something like this with as much precision and as much care and as much consistency as Ridley Scott has been able to for like 60 years of his career. Most modern filmmakers nowadays do not have the stamina or the spine to make a movie of this size and actually survive and get to the end. Directors such as Spielberg and Scorsese and all of the GOATs, they see pressure, they see hard times, they see challenges, and this excites them. With so many modern day filmmakers, they see that and that scares them, and that terrifies me as someone of who's about to get into it. I think that we need, as I said in my Letterboxd review, we need to get back to making movies that are difficult. We need to challenge ourselves more physically as filmmakers and do stuff that is more difficult, that requires us to work in the cold, in the mud, with 100 horses that you have to pay for food, and their trainers. And therefore I have so much more respect for someone like this, because he's still doing it at the age of 85 and doing things that people, directors who are in their prime could never dream of even being able to physically last one day. Point number 2 about why I love John Wick 4 so much is that, in my opinion, at every turn, the filmmakers behind this film are pushing themselves, and they're looking at us. There's a great moment in a podcast, by the way. I don't know if you've seen it, but Matt Damon is being interviewed about The Departed, and he's telling a story about how Jack Nicholson took this tiny scene in The Departed right at the beginning when him and Ray Winstone, I think, are killing a bunch of people by a beach. And he says, well, this scene is very short, and he said to Martin Scorsese, I'm gonna do stuff, and I'm not gonna cost you any more money, and I'm not gonna waste any more of your time. And so Jack Nicholson goes, I'm gonna do something. Now we can stop there, or we can improve it even more, and I'm gonna do this. Now we can stop there, but we're gonna improve it more and do this. And he just kept going until the scene was just like unreal. And that's exactly the same philosophy I believe the filmmakers did to John Wick, because at every point they have pushed themselves to make the film better in every way. And I'll give you an example. In a normal action film, you would get a scene between, one character, they're just talking in a grey room somewhere. Like the grey man is full of grey rooms, okay? And I like the grey man. Or even, I guess, in Bullet Train recently, it's just Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Brian Tyree Henry in a train. Although it's a bullet train, you can't do that much with it. And they did a lot with it anyway. There's a scene in Paris, towards the beginning of the Paris segment, where you have John Wick, and then you have Ian McShane, and you have Bill Skarsgård, and you have Donnie Yen, and they're having a chat. And so they're having like the parlay, right? Yep. And it's like, on one hand, you could just have a parlay in a room. But no, we're going to have a parlay with the Eiffel Tower in view. Is that enough? No. They're going to have a parlay in this kind of cleared out location where they've kind of obviously hired out the entire place. Probably had to contact the Parisian government to let them film there, and you could stop there. But no, they're going to put really cool tables, really cool specific furniture that makes it look like, these guys truly are extremely powerful. Could stop there. But no, they put doves in the fucking background that fly every shot just for fun because they can. Yeah. And that kind of philosophy of just improving, what else can we do? What else can we do is exactly why I love this film so much.
So this is a great point that you bring up location in this film, because it is really this globe-trotting adventure action spectacle. They kind of did it with Parabellum, the previous one, but this one, it goes from literally like the Sahara Desert. New York is always
one of the main characters,
one of the characters in these films, to Osaka in Japan, Berlin, and then Paris, and they look incredible, all these locations.
Maybe because I went to film school. We both know people our age, but like the filmmaking kind of community of our age, they're all fucking pussies. All right, like they're all spineless. They couldn't last a day outside of an air-conditioned room. There's a reason every single film that was made in my final year was in a bunch of rooms. All right, they didn't like going outside. They didn't like being challenged. There was like one movie that was made outdoors, and it was actually not bad. I think just generally, as a community, but also just as filmmakers, we just need to be more tough. We just need to invite pressure. You know, we've worked with so many people who just crack. And I'm like, the whole point of being a filmmaker is that you invite difficulty. What is filmmaking? It's problem solving on a large scale. And these people are worried about problems, not excited by them. And therefore, I think what Ridley Scott represents for me is the right philosophy of making movies. What Martin Scorsese represents for me, what Steven Spielberg represents for me. They welcome problems. They see a problem and they say, problems exist to be solved. Whereas with our generation, problems exist to be complained about to your therapist twice a week. Going back to that first point of how do we make this better? How do we make this more interesting? We have the money, we have the resources, we have the skill, most importantly. Now let's work hard, extra harder, and make it as cool as possible.
Yeah.
You know, so that Arc de Triomphe sequence didn't need to have moving cars, right? It didn't need to, but it did, and it made it 10 times cooler. There is a scene in which Bill Skarsgård, I can't remember who he's talking to, but he's talking to someone in a stable, and there are women on horses with fencing swords riding around him. Now, if you were any other lesser mortal filmmaker, you would just have Bill Skarsgård talking in a stable.
Yeah.
But no. There are horses riding around him for no fucking reason whatsoever, except that it's cool and because they could do it and they could afford it. And it's like, why? Who knows? Who cares?
Yeah,
it's just cool.
Yeah, it is.
And that is the kind of philosophy that I love in filmmaking, where you just throw shit in. It doesn't necessarily need to make sense, but it just elevates the scene just a little bit more and makes it just a little bit cooler because they can. And because it requires a little bit more effort, people see like 6 horses.
Yep.
I'm not seeing 6 horses. I'm seeing 6 horses who need to be trained specifically for films, riders who need to be specifically trained, not with horses, but with swords as well, food for the horses, money for the trainers, money for the transportation of the horses. This is like, then it's like, why are you doing this just for one shot of horses? But because they can, and because they're hardworking individuals who make an effort, and they're driven, and they're motivated, and they're disciplined. And for me as a filmmaker, that's very inspiring. It's like, we're going to go out of our way constantly, consistently, at every scene, every turn, whether it be lighting, set design, you know, like when they're in the church, Donnie Yen and John Wick having a chat, there's just like loads of candles everywhere. Someone had to light those candles, you know, and it's like these little details are what make me as a filmmaker really inspired to be like, if I ever get to that level, that's the kind of stuff I want to be doing and putting in the effort and attention to detail at every turn.
That's nice, because that's actually like, if you could say this to Chad Stahelski, I'm sure that he would say like, this is one of the most rewarding aspects of going and seeing his film, or any filmmaker for that matter, is being inspired by these films to actually implement things that you've seen from them into your own processes.
Yes.
It's an interesting point you make, because it's like what you are specifically talking about is the mindset you bring to set, essentially. Every day you wake up and you're like,
to life.
Exactly, right? But I mean, could you not make an argument? Every filmmaker is different. Some filmmakers prioritize how do you tell the story in the most authentic way possible, in the best way possible, channeling the narrative and doing the narrative and the story and the characters justice. What I see is, I agree with what you're saying, and for sure. I think a lot of people take filmmaking for granted as well. Ridley Scott, for me, this is I was kind of touching on this. He makes films at such a fast rate that he can't do absolutely everything, even though his mind is in the sort of the right place, and he's clearly one of the most hardworking directors.
I'll ask you a question. Give me, in your opinion, let's say you just talked about directors who like story, characters, and exploration and stuff. Excuse me. Give me an example of that.
Jordan Peele.
Okay. I think Ridley Scott can make a character-driven movie. He did so. It's called Blade Runner, right? But can Jordan Peele make an epic? I don't think so. Can Ridley Scott make a movie?
Jordan Peele's only made 3 films.
Exactly.
He hasn't.
Can Ridley Scott make a movie that is as detailed and clever as Get Out, Us, or Nope? Yes, he has. It's called Blade Runner. It's called Alien. But can Jordan Peele make something that is as big as Kingdom of Heaven or Gladiator? No. There is nothing more inspiring than watching a film where you could look at it and you actually feel the hard work and the blood, sweat, and tears that they did.
Yeah.
Because, respectfully speaking, not only have I worked on films, but you can watch films as well where you see that people are kind of phoning it in.
Yeah.
They don't really care and they're not giving it 100%. And they're basically just sleepwalking through the job. Nobody slept-walked through John Wick 4. Everyone wanted to be there and everyone gave 110%.
Agreed.